was his fantasy. He used to believe in something would happen. Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. A Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. Totally lost in what can we do but mock him relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not a Gnostic change. Mary Nardini tells us clear liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, James. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity. Gender binary and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. To believe in something, what happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult, building his own world. Gnostic sex cult, unhinged from reality. He's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
Hello, fellow Gnostic sex cultists. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I do Monday through Friday on YouTube, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble, where we do deep dives into the far left. We talk about what they're doing. We look at the activists that are operating in the world today. We do deep dives into the organizations. Sometimes we dabble in the far right too, but mostly we focus our attention on the left because the left really are in control and they're kicking all of our asses. And so we have to. And today we are going to be continuing with the series that we started yesterday, which is we are going back and reliving the takeover of Evergreen State College. And we're using Benjamin Boyce's wonderful documentary to do it. And I'm going to say this like every day that we end up doing this. And this could potentially take a while. Yesterday, we only got through 2 episodes. He has like 87 episodes of this here documentary. Okay, maybe not quite that many. But every day I'm going to reiterate this. I think that Benjamin Boyce, like, his documentary is second to none. No one who has covered Evergreen comes close to the job that Benjamin Boyce did. His work is wonderful in general. I know he's doing a watch party of this. I didn't mean to overlap my watch party with his. In fact, his is probably going to be much better, and it's going to be from a different perspective because he's the one that made the documentary. But this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, is to go back and rewatch the Evergreen State College documentary, because I have not watched it since before I started doing almost daily deep dives into the socialist left. And so now I'm kind of coming back, and I watched it a couple times before I really started digging into this stuff. But now I'm kind of coming back to it with a fresh set of eyes, having been really immersed with the far left for I mean, literally years now, and many of my audience members have been doing that as well. And so what we're able to do is go back and watch this documentary and pick out things that maybe we didn't notice before, or maybe that it just didn't occur to us the importance of that thing. And so that's why we're going back and doing it. But I highly recommend everyone support Benjamin's work. Go watch his watch party of this stuff too, because he's going to be able to have additional insights, because he was a student there as all this was going on. And how lucky are we that he was a student there, because he was able to capture all of this information. Let's see. Kelly says, I caught up last night with the first 2 parts. I had never seen this. It's really good so far. Yeah, Benjamin did a great job with this. I don't remember hearing the story the first time around. Guys, if you missed yesterday's episode, I mean, you can still watch with us, but I definitely recommend going back and getting caught up from the beginning if you have an opportunity to. Evergreen State College happened in 2017. So it was one of the very early indicators of this stuff. Now, that's not to say there wasn't crazy stuff happening on college campuses before that. I was working in higher education in 2015. I was a consultant. I was working in a consulting company that served higher ed clients, and which basically meant like I was on the phone with like presidents and boards and stuff like that. And so I remember the first major incident that really kind of sent waves through higher education was actually at Yale University in 2015, and it was a fight about Halloween costumes, and faculty were being struggle sessioned in the quad and all this stuff. So Evergreen State College happened a few years after that, but it really is one of the earliest instances that we have to look back on. And one of the reasons that it's so awesome that Benjamin did what he did is he documented everything meticulously. So we actually have a ton of information about this because he did such a good job. So that's why we're going back and doing this. And I think that there are a lot of parallels to find between what happened at Evergreen in 2017 and what is still happening on college campuses today. The encampments are going back up on college campuses. The one at Columbia is back up, and so this is still going to be perpetuating all throughout the summer. This is absolutely going to be perpetuating in the fall when the majority of students go back to campus. And so there's a lot that we can learn and pick up from this. And I just thought it was a good time getting into June to be able to kind of take a step back and spend some time on this. And I don't know how long this series is going to go, because we do have a lot to get through. It could conceivably be a little while, but we'll be able to watch a bunch today. So that'll be good. And so that is what we're going to be doing now. A couple orders of business before we get started. Number 1, tomorrow is not a singular spy stream type of day. Tomorrow is a double spy stream type of day, which I don't think I've ever actually done before. To spy stream 2 separate events in the same day. I've done multi-day spy streams. I've done spy streams that lasted 2 to 3 days, but I've never done one where we went into one event and then took a little break and then went right into another event, because it's Pride Month, ladies and gentlemen, and there are a lot of queer events, and it just so happens that 2 of them are scheduled for tomorrow. And so what does that mean? Number 1, my spy streams, for people who might be unfamiliar, my spy streams are when I take you inside a live woke training. And so the training is live. It is happening like in real time. We don't know what they're going to say. We don't know what they're going to do. These trainings are also things that you have to sign up for. Oftentimes, and that is the case with one of these trainings, you have to pay money for them. They're like private trainings. And so what we're getting an insight into is we are basically a fly on the wall of what happens behind closed doors when people don't want us listening to what they're saying. Okay? So that is what Spy Stream is. Now, this is a supporter exclusive. So what does that mean? There are a bunch of different platforms you can support my work on. Of course, my preferred platform is Substack, which is carlin.substack.com, and we're going to talk about that in a second. However, this is going to be available to supporters on my main Substack, carlin.substack.com, on Locals, kb.locals.com, on Patreon, which I don't have many people supporting me on Patreon because it's just not something I normally push. But if you are supporting me on Patreon, I do appreciate that support, and you will get an invite link as well. If you are subscribed on Twitter, so you're paying me like $5 a month on Twitter, you're going to get a link. And if you are a YouTube channel member, you're going to get a link. So those are the platforms that are invited to my supporter only events. Again, that's going to be my main Substack, carlin.substack.com, locals, kb.locals.com, Patreon, Twitter subscriptions, or YouTube channel membership. And so what's going to happen is tomorrow I'm going to be sending out a post with all of the links that you need. Now, this is a little bit tricky because I can't schedule more than one Rumble stream at a time. And so when I am doing these spy streams, what I'm doing is unlisted links essentially that you only get access to if I send them to you. And I can't do more than one Rumble stream at a time. And so it's going to have to be a case where I post on some platforms one link and then I go back later and update the other link. It shouldn't really be a big deal for most people, but I just want to make people aware of that. The YouTube links will be scheduled separately in advance. So if you want to come watch on YouTube, and quite frankly, the chat is best on YouTube. I usually just use Rumble as a backup for Spy Stream, just in case, because you never know what could happen. So if you like, I would just use YouTube, quite frankly, because that does allow me to schedule two different streams at the same time. So we can send out the links and all that's clever. I'm going to be sending out the links tomorrow morning. Okay. So the timing of this, it kind of sucks for people who aren't supporters, to be honest, because usually on Wednesdays, I have a community supporter call at noon. I'm going to have to cancel that community supporter call for tomorrow because the first spy stream starts round about 12:30. Okay. So I'm going to have to cancel it. I apologize. Everyone will survive. We're going to be doing spy stream instead. The second spy stream overlaps with my daily 5 p.m. stream. So it's going to be round about 5:30. That spy stream is going to start. And so I'm going to have to cancel my usual 5 p.m. stream as well because we're doing spy stream. I know everyone understands. Okay. So that's what's going to happen. The credentials will go out in the morning. And so round about probably 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock, depending on when I get out of bed. But that is when the credentials are going to go out. So you're going to have information that morning. And again, you need to be a supporter on Substack, Locals, Patreon, YouTube channel membership, or Twitter subscriptions. You don't need to be at all of those. I mean, if you were all of them, that'd be pretty rad. But you don't need to be. But if you are a supporter on one of those platforms, you will have access to the credentials in a post that I will make out to the community in the morning. And guys, if you've never been to a spy stream before, we've got two opportunities tomorrow, and both of these trainings center around queer and trans youth. I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are. I will tell you that one of them is taxpayer funded, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because we don't want word getting back to the people running the trainings that it might be streamed on the internet. Okay. This is also part of why I make them supporter exclusives because quite frankly, they used to just be streamed on the internet when I first started doing Spy Stream. And that created a lot of problems because then someone would run and tattle to the organizers and then they'd stop the training or they'd kick us out or any of those things. So now it's a supporter exclusive event. And that has actually kind of solved a lot of problems, if I'm honest about it. So that's the way that's going to go. I really do hope that everyone's going to be able to join for at least one of the spy streams tomorrow. And again, I'll be sending out more information about that in the morning. And they're a ton of fun, guys. Listen, not every spy stream is eventful, okay? We have sat through a lot of boring stuff on Spy Stream. However, there are occasions on Spy Stream where we see some of the craziest stuff that you will ever see in your life, and we see it as it's happening live. And on rare occasion, we're able to actually break news out of Spy Stream and make things go viral out of Spy Stream and actually get a significant amount of eyes on something that no one would have ever seen if we hadn't taken the initiative to go and watch it in the first place. So I can't guarantee something's going to happen, but I can tell you that both of these trainings are targeting towards queer and trans youth, and one of them's taxpayer funded. And, it's just a nice little recipe for insanity. Usually something will happen out of those, but I can't guarantee, but I will do my best. Anyway, that's going to be tomorrow. If you want to get access to that, of course, one of the places that you can sign up is on the Substack, which is Carlin, Karlyn cult.substack.com. And if you sign up for a membership of $8 a month or $80 a year, that will get you access to Spy Stream. That will get you access to my community Zooms. That will get you access to my supporter Discord. That will get you access to the Inner Circle podcast, which is my supporter only podcast. We are going to be doing another episode of the Inner Circle coming out later tonight, talking about queer anarcho-communist literature. So the timing is great for that. And check this out. We got to do a special shout out. We have to do a shout out to Nick Incognito because I released a podcast last night because I was so excited about the piece of information that Nick found for us. Because, I mean, for a year and a half, I've been talking about socialist tattoos and how socialists have this weird tattoo subculture where they have really bad black line tattoos on their arms, and the bad black line tattoos are of random stuff, and I could never figure this out. And I'm like into, like, I like tattoo subculture. I have a lot of tattoos. I have like 15 tattoos or something like that. I mean, this one should really count as 5 because it was 5 sessions. Like, anyway, I understand tattoos. I pay attention to tattoos. Like, this is something that I was in. And like, I could not for the life of me figure out what is it with the bad black line tattoos that I'm continuing to see at all these socialist events. It's not that socialists are the only people with bad black line tattoos, but socialists usually happen to have bad black line tattoos. And I got to give a big shout out. Nick has been struggling. He's been doing the work and he found the answer for us. Nick found an obscure article from the UK. Check this out. Why ignorant style tattoos are an act of queer defiance. A defiant and transgressive act against the status quo, crude DIY tattoos have been taken up by the queer community as a proud symbol of their outsider status. And I just want to read a specific part of this. Check this out. Delia's tattoos and character as Diney. Apparently, a lot of trans people are now amateur tattoo artists that are tattooing out of their houses. Delia tattoos in character as Diney, a twisted and childlike alter ego whose fixations include anti-capitalism and dead animals. Her designs are messy, chaotic, and regularly explicit. One tattoo depicts a Tyrannosaurus Rex with an erect penis. Another shows 2 flies having sex doggy style. She sees these more controversial designs as a way for queer people to reclaim their outsider status in a world where counterculture has become culture and tattoos are no longer taboo. If you still want to make people feel affronted, she says, then you've got to move into tattoos looking purposefully bad. So every time I said that socialists have really bad black line tattoos and they're just bad, they're actually telling us that they are purposefully making them look bad. Apparently because tattoos just went too mainstream and the good tattoos were just too good looking. And so they had to queer tattoos by making them look purposefully bad. So again, Nick, I know Nick was doing this project for weeks looking for this information. And I really do have to give Nick a hand because no one asked Nick to do this. This was something that he took initiative on, that he was like, I'm going to figure out this tattoo bullshit. And I really appreciate it because this is something that, like, when I read this article, I was like, holy shit, everything I was saying was correct. So I really do appreciate it, Nick. And if you want to hear me reading this article and doing some commentary on it, there is a new podcast up on the Substack. This is the Actively Unwoke podcast. This is my free podcast that's available through the Substack. You can also find it on iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, whatever the thing. Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And it is episode number 53, Queer Tattoos, Why Leftists Have Bad Black Tattoos. Bad black tattoos. There we go. The mystery is solved. So that is the latest podcast over on the Substack, and I really do appreciate you guys checking that out. Couple other orders of business. Number 1, of course, it is Tuesday night, and that means that this is not my last stream of the day. This is but my first stream of the day. And at 9:30 tonight, I will be going live with Joshua. And oh my God, do we have some stuff to psychic this week? Now, Joshua did correctly predict last week that Trump was pretty effed in terms of that trial. And that was a shift of gears for Joshua. Joshua had been saying for months, it's probably going to be fine. It's probably going to be fine. But there was a very pronounced switch of the gears last week when we asked Joshua, is Trump going to get found guilty? And he was like, yup. Absolutely. And so for those of you who don't know, Joshua McGuire is a professional psychic. He is also a friend of mine. And we do a show together every Tuesday night at 9:30 called Nothing Remotely Controversial, where we talk about the news and Joshua tries to predict what's going to happen. And you get to send us in super chats to ask questions and stuff like that. And so Joshua has correctly predicted many things. And now I want Joshua to predict if Trump is actually going to go to Rikers Island. I think that would be an interesting thing. But you can drop by and ask your questions tonight at 9:30, and that's going to be happening on this channel. And then on Thursday, Big Tech is returning to the channel for the second part of the Century of the Self. This is something we started last Wednesday, and I was hoping we could have an alliterated Wednesday watch party, but no, he wasn't available this Wednesday. He wanted to do it on Thursday. All right, fine. I guess I can't get everything I want. So we will be doing a Wednesday watch party of the second part of the Century of the Self on Thursday at 9 p.m. And if you want to watch the first one we did to that, just head over to my channel. Bing. Hang on, if it'll click through for me. And you can go back to last week and you can find, if it wants to load, you can find part 1 here. And I got to say, I think this documentary is really interesting. I think it provides an interesting perspective. I think it definitely provides some context to some of the stuff that we're thinking about. And so I definitely encourage people to check that out. And also, if you want to see another conversation that I had randomly with Big Tech on Sunday, you can check this out. I posted this to the channel last night because I did he and I are starting an extremist book club. And I did a call into his show the other night to talk about that. And we talked about a bunch of other stuff too. We talked about religion, we talked about aliens, we talked about sex, we talked about a lot of stuff. I thought it was a good talk. And so I put it on the channel if people want to see that, because I know not everyone is over. He streams on Kick, so he's kick.com/bigtech. And I know not everyone is over there. So if you want to see or rather listen to the talk that we had, because he's in the shadow realm and I wasn't even on screen, but you can hear us both talking about a wide variety of things, to include the Extremist Book Club. And you can check that out on the channel now. All right, let's get this party started, guys. Now, here's what I need everyone to do. I need everyone to mount the like button for me, please. And if you don't feel comfortable mounting the like button, that's fine. You can high five the like button. You can give the like button a kiss on the cheek. You can put your arm around the like button. You can hold the like button's hand. You can do something far more graphic and obscene to the like button if the urge calls you. The like button consents to everything, but I need you to do something to the like button, because doing something to the like button, but no smashing, okay? We're not hooligans. We're not teenagers. We don't smash here. We're all adults. And so mounting the like button or doing whatever bliss you have tells YouTube to actually recommend my content to people, and that would be really, really great. Let's see, bot per usual pegged the like button. It's very consistent bot. Maybe switch it up every once in a while. Zebra gently caressed the like button. Renan canceled the like button on X. Thank you, Renan. Murphy's Pool, always got to be the contrarian. It's going in for the smash, even though I asked him not to. But yeah, Adrian, just the tip. That's fine. That's fine. All right, guys, we are starting with episode 3 of Benjamin Boyce's documentary about the Evergreen State College. And as always, if you have observations that you would like to make in the chat about what we're seeing and how it relates back to the far left radical revolutionary socialists that we've been watching, please make sure to make them in the chat. I will be paying attention to it. Yeah, wasn't that interesting? Honest dog, ignorant tattoo style. I mean, who could have seen that coming? All right, guys, let's get this party started.
No offense, guys, but there's mostly white people in this room, and I'm loving the love in here. And well, how is it that the faculty, the ones with power, are the ones that ain't got no sex? All these white people here are the ones that got sex, and they don't even work for you. How is it that the people are teaching us are the ones that ain't got no sense? Apparently, we should be the teachers. Why can't I fire them? Why can't you fire them? Hire some of these students here that apparently knows how to approximately 9:30 in the morning, a group of about 50 students were organizing a peaceful protest against anti-Black remarks that a faculty member, Brett Weinstein, had made in past
hang on, did you guys see the website? Do you guys see? This will be posted on Afropunk. Where do zines come from? We've been talking about how, so the whole idea behind gain-of-function Marxism, which is a term I coined with the help of people in my chat. The whole point of gain-of-function Marxism is that the thing that are inspiring students just like this, and actually probably these students, isn't just the pure writings of like Marx and Mao and Marcuse. There was a mutated strand of Marxism that was created with the help of queer anarcho-communists. And one of the ways we started to figure this out is we started reading their zines. Zines are a form of propaganda that queer anarcho-communists use to spread their ideas. Where do zines come from? Where do zines come from? They come from punk. The propaganda tools that the anarcho-communists are using evolved directly out of punk. Where's that website? Afropunk.com.
Against anti-Black remarks that a faculty member, Brett Weinstein, had made in past emails. Weinstein came out of the D building after receiving reports of the students' plans, attempting to block the students from entering the building.
He came out to us. We were all gathered outside. He opened the door and said, "Hey, what's going on?" Because my students already told me what's going on pretty much.
For transparency, we did block him at first. He was trying to leave, but however, we didn't. We had a conversation with him. Whatever conversation is.
And we asked Weinstein to take responsibility for his actions and the statements that he made in his anti-Black emails. Students were understandably upset, but were not overtly threatening him in any harmful way.
I don't care. I read your email. It's bullshit. Fuck you. I'm tired. And fuck your students.
Brett Weinstein began filming the students once they entered the building, but was contesting their rights to film him.
My instinct that if you guys are going to record me, well, I want a record of the thing too, so you can't edit it. That I think was the right instinct. It turned out not to be necessary because it's not my fault. Took the videos and made them public, and the videos spoke for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember asking them not to film you, or refusing them to film you, or
I don't think I did
at all? Okay,
I don't think I did.
The students then peppered Weinstein with questions, asking if he knew that what he did was harmful to both students and the faculty of color. He replied that he did not think he was wrong in his actions, which upset both students of color and white students.
If you had attended Day of Action, you would have seen that they were talking about white allyship. And part of being a white ally is when understanding when you do something that's racist, owning up to it, taking responsibility, and adapting your behavior.
Hey, hang on. I just want to take a second to actually read this, okay? If you attended Day of Absence, you would have seen that they were talking about white allyship. What does ally mean? Pop quiz for the chat. And part of being a white ally is understanding when you do something that's racist. So racist is going to be against the allyship. What does allyship mean? Owning up to it, taking responsibility, and adapting your behavior. Allyship means that you're a comrade in the revolution. That's what being an ally is, the gateway drug to being a comrade. It's a way for them to say comrade without saying comrade, because most people in the real world, when you say comrade, they're like, I'm not a comrade though. I'm not a communist. So they can't say comrade in the real world. So what do? They change the name to allyship. So anytime you're seeing ally, that means comrade. Ally means you are in solidarity with the comrades. Ally means solidarity with the comrades. Comrades, ally is a comrade. And so when they're talking about something that's quote unquote racist, because Brett Weinstein didn't do anything against Black people. Brett Weinstein's a raging effing liberal. He's a raging progressive. He didn't do anything against Black people. So when they're calling Brett Weinstein racist in this, what are they actually saying? being racist is against communism. They're saying when they call Brett a racist, what are they saying? They're saying, well, yeah, he's a capitalist, but actually, like, I'm thinking about it slightly differently, Bot. When they're saying you should have become an ally, ally means comrade. Take the word capitalist out of it, guys. I do not want to see anyone say the word capitalist again to this question. If they are saying that the goal of being, and I'm gonna beat the talking points out of you guys. Like, you guys have done a great job with the talking points, but nope, still not seeing it. Guys, we talked about this yesterday. We're upping our game. I need everyone to stop just repeating the talking points that I've been saying without thinking about it. Now we're going to learn how to apply this stuff, okay? We already know that allyship means comrade. So if they're calling Brett in this context a racist, then what are they saying? That he's a counter-revolutionary. Okay, what's another way? He's an anti-communist. Exactly. He is an enemy. He is a reactionary. Exactly. He is, Daniel, perfect. He is a traitor to the collective. The goal of a struggle session is to get someone to bend the knee to the collective. He's a literal fascist. He refused to bend the knee and join the hive mind. He refused to join the mob. He refused to label himself an ally. He refused to label himself a comrade. So he is by very definition a traitor. He's yes, he is this, isn't he? And of course we know all of these concepts relate back to capitalism, but I want people, like, you guys are now all well, unless you're new here. If you're new here, welcome. But for people who've been around for a while, you guys are all now masters of learning how to apply the word capitalism in different ways. You guys understand that individualism upholds capitalism. You guys understand that to call someone a fascist means to call them a capitalist. I just want to make sure everyone can explain this in different ways and can actually be responsive to what's going on right in front of them. I would not say this because that's going to confuse people. He's not how is he upholding white supremacy? He hasn't done anything against black people. That's going to confuse people. That's not what I would do. All right, let's keep going.
You tell black people what we need from you. You can't tell us what we need from you. The students chanted and continued to try to make their feelings known to Weinstein, but he was refusing to listen and instead attempted multiple times to take over the discourse and make the students listen to him.
Day of absence has been here longer than I have. I have never protested it until the idea. Until they make white people like no. Exactly. You got mad at that white students.
I just want to point this out. White student. I think he's on Team Brett, so I'm not counting him. But there's a white student there. There's another white student there. There's another white student there. There's other white students over here. This wasn't about skin color. This wasn't about hating white people. There are a whole bunch of white kids involved in that mob.
Keep your fucking ass here.
No.
Yes, you did. We have the email.
First of all,
we got permission.
Would you like to hear the answer or not?
No.
The students exited the building while chanting and made their way down the walkways of the Seminar 2 building on the second floor. At this point, the students were attempting to debrief and discuss what just occurred when Officer Timothy Odell arrived and attempted to push through the crowd of white students protecting the people of color and those with disabilities.
You don't block me. Out of my way. Out of my way now.
The police chief, Stacy Brown, also arrived and attempted to assist Odell.
Yep. The white students, in blocking the police, were proving their comradeship. They were proving their loyalty to the collective. And I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll say it again just in case anyone, like, there were people who weren't here. So this actually happened at Columbia. When Columbia decolonized that building and renamed it Heinz Hall, when they knew the police were coming to raid them, they told all the white students to line up in front of the building. So we're seeing history repeat itself there.
With accosting people of color. After some time of nonviolent dialogue, the students began to file down the stairs towards the Red Square. By the time most of the group arrived at Red Square, both state troopers and Olympia police showed up and began to threaten students with mace and arrest.
Radio Evergreen 1. Please have Thurston County stand down at this point. We do not need a response. We have the crowd dissipating, just to have them stand by.
Students, fearful for their lives, began retreating towards the library and ultimately ended up in the Trans and Queer Center Unity Lounge trying to stay safe. The white students were then delegated to spread out throughout the library floor and watch for police potentially surrounding the building. The white students did see police surround the building, but as of this point, most of them have retreated.
Let's take a little bit of a bird's eye view of the situation. What we have here is the Sim 2 buildings. They're mapped out in this weird way. It goes Sim A, Sim B, Sim C, Sim D, and Sim E. From what I've gathered, Brett Weinstein's class was in Sim E. The protesters exited and then went down to Sim D, and that's where the police officers saw them. Timothy O'Dell goes down on the second level, and they have that miniature confrontation. Stacey Brown then goes and seeks an alternate entrance into the area because they believe that because they got a call with students cornering a professor, that the professor would be where the students were. So that's where some of the confusion is. Brett's still in Seminar E. So the students then depart and they go down this ramp here, and then there's some ramps hidden in the building, and then they go and they convene on the grassy knoll. Now, the county police are told to stage in the bus loop. The county police, and this is what Stacey Brown has told me, they never enter Evergreen campus if they are not explicitly asked to do so.
The county police never enter the campus unless they're asked to do so. Is exactly the same at Columbia. Is Evergreen the same in which Jordan Peterson was accused of being a white supremacist? No, Rottweiler, because that was in Canada. I don't remember what college that was specifically, but Jordan Peterson is a Canadian. He's not an American. So perhaps he should go back to Canada and focus on Canada.
Because there's too much history with Evergreen students that want to deal with the paperwork or any other inconveniences. County police stage here. The students arrange themselves on the grassy knoll, and then they say that they go and hide out in the Trans and Queer Center in the library building. So here's the library building right here.
They already had a Trans and Queer Center.
It's called Red Square. We can keep on laughing about that, but that's just what it's called.
Red Square. I want to make a list at some point. I started doing this a while back, but this is something I would like to do for like the Unwoke wiki. I want to make a list of all of the trans and queer centers and gender studies programs and things like that. I basically want to go through, and we should probably start, and my dog is expressing her opinion on this, we should probably start with like the most elite colleges and like work our way down. But what I want to do is I want to make a list of all of the crazy woke centers that exist at these colleges. So like the trans and queer office, the center for like gender studies or whatever the fuck, because a lot of the craziest stuff at universities doesn't come out from like the main university. It comes out from these like little teeny tiny centers that has like 2 or 3 people working for them, that's buried in like the basement of some building, but they're actually producing like all this crazy video and all this crazy research and stuff like that. And so that's a project I would like to do at some point on the list of 912 things that I want to do.
Police services are in Lab 1, which is over here. And this is, again, the administration and library building. And actually, you can see this little shadow and this little patio. That is Library 4300, where most of the rest of the day's footage will take place. So the students, by their own admission, flee for their lives. Well, video shows them standing in place, but they flee for their lives. They go and hide out in one of the rooms in here for trans and queer people. And then the white people are supposed to disperse through the building, and the white people apparently see police surrounding the library building, which is impossible. Well, I guess it's technically possible, but I need to tell you, there's only 2 active police officers on the Evergreen campus at any given time. There's no way that they're going to surround a building, but I guess it just doesn't matter at this point what's truth and reality. So that's just a little map, and let's get back to the show.
This is all that the students know to have happened at this time. The students are trying their best.
And another thing with that too is you got to keep in mind what Benjamin Boyce just like really well illustrated there is that socialists always lie. They will say whatever they need to in order to conform reality to what they need it to be. Now, do they actually believe this? I think some of them do. Maybe not all of them, but I think that some of them actually have messed up their head so much that they literally do believe all of the crazy stuff that they say, even if you have direct verifiable evidence that like, no, there was no possible way police could have surrounded the building. That just didn't happen. Like there weren't enough police. That didn't happen. But it doesn't matter because that's the way they framed it in their head, and they're going to stick to that story and they will not deviate. This is why debunking them does no good, because they believe that this is the truth. And there is nothing that you can say, there is nothing that you can do to convince them that it is not the truth. Okay? And so if you're trying to deal with them, you have to understand they're in the power position. And if you want to waste all your time yelling at them or saying, it's just not true, it's just not true, it's just not, it is such a fool's errand and it is a waste of energy for you to even engage in that discussion. You have to expect that they're going to lie. Now let's apply that to what's going on right now with like the college protests and like the stuff that's still going on about Palestine. The student groups, hang on, I'm going to cough or sneeze, as it were. The student groups have all these social media accounts. They have Instagram accounts. They've got Twitter accounts. They've got Telegram groups. They've got all this stuff. The student groups are saying crazy things in those groups. They're posting crazy things on their Instagram, but they actually believe those crazy things happened. So we're seeing exactly the same phenomenon with the protesters now, with the pro-Palestinian protesters now, as we did at Evergreen, in that they lie very freely about what's going on. And so you can never take their word for it. You can look at something and say, that's their perspective. Like they believe that is their perspective. That is their truth. Okay, fine. But you have to know when you're doing that, just because they believe that's the truth or they're purporting that that's the truth, that doesn't mean that that's actually what happened.
To get their voice, their message across in a peaceful manner, but only are being met with backlash and excessive police force. This is the active and only true narrative of today's event.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Hashtag expose Evergreen.
After the police were so careful not to do what they would have been entitled to do legally, they could have arrested all of them for blocking the police. After that, then the protesters had the audacity to misrepresent what the police had done. So the whole thing, it just tells the entire tale. And if they, hadn't filmed it, you wouldn't necessarily know. It would be he said, she said. But in this case, it's he said, she said, and the film says that she was right and he was wrong. Yeah. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Evergreen, please. Hey, this is Mindy in the library. We just got a call, and actually still have her on the line, from a mother who got a text from her daughter who said she's being held on the 4th floor and they won't let her leave.
There are no doors locked, and there's nobody being held anywhere.
Oh, so you already know.
I think she just doesn't want to get up and go because she's embarrassed somebody will say something to her.
Okay.
Everybody's free to leave.
Okay, I will. The mother's still on the phone, right. So we'll pass that information along.
Okay.
We have a call from a mother who's concerned about their child. And what I want to ask is, and encourage, is that everyone is here of their own volition.
What?
And that folks who want to depart can depart.
No, you work for us. You work for us.
That they are weaponizing motherhood? in a way that they did not for black people earlier this week.
I have asked Stacey Brown to come. She's willing to come. I believe she's willing to come unarmed. She needs to go home and change, get out of her gear, come in plain clothes. So here's what we're going to do.
Give her.
Let me finish.
Christopher, there were provably snipers then, and there were provably snipers in the campus protest that just happened. I've seen pictures of it, bro. I saw pictures of snipers, I believe in Detroit. I saw pictures of snipers from multiple states. So no, we're not still looking for that is actually a real thing. Okay? That is something that's factually true. And that's an instance of unnecessary escalation on the part of the police. Quite frankly, like the sniper bullshit, I'm sorry. Like, I actually do have to, there were absolutely snipers at Columbia. Like, I have to take the side of the students on that one, to be honest. If you're going to call out snipers for peaceful protests, which at the time that they were called out, it wasn't this. At the time that they were called out were actually peaceful, you need to take a step back because you're the one escalating the situation. I'm not saying the students are innocent, but so many part of the reason we're watching this is to reverse engineer mistakes. And there were so many mistakes made on the part of the universities, both then by Evergreen and also now with the campus protests that we saw, last month. Guys, please stop arguing with Autumn. Autumn, stop shit stirring. In fact, I'm putting Autumn in a timeout. Stop arguing, guys. Pay attention to what's going on.
Please. I want to go to work with my people. I want to go to work.
Hold on, real quick. Let's see it real quick.
With the people, the vice presidents.
Your people in the fucking state. You fascists, fuck you. Fuck you, George.
I wouldn't. So right now
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Yeah, George. I'm going to go to work with the vice presidents and the deans. As soon as we adjourn, we're going to come back.
Oh, no, we're all going to stay here.
There's a seat in the ground. Sit in a circle. We'll witness it.
I'm tired of white people talking about what black and brown people need. You don't know.
I'm just trying to respond.
I'm letting you know.
George wants to go talk to his people.
For what?
Whoever his people are. We need to have people in that room. They can't go by themselves. If they won't come here, some of us have to go to that.
Hey, that's fine with me.
They can't be there with closed doors. So people need to volunteer to go sit in that room and make sure that whatever happens is legit.
I'm Jamil. I'm a black trans body on this campus. I feel a lot of responsibility just by the nature of my positionality in this world to do a lot of emotional labor for all of y'all and the students involved. And it's been really, really draining, but I'm still in this room and still fighting for the people we fought for. I'm interested in this conversation going in a way that can actually protect people.
It was this act of sort of externalizing this emotional labor that I was used to doing all the time and just keeping on the inside. I could put it outside of me. What is this white thing? What does it mean to you? I actually want to know, because it kind of baffles me how difficult it seems to actually engage it with any kind of sincerity.
I'm sure.
Scott is asking a good question, and this is something that we don't see this as much anymore, to be honest. They've kind of stopped doing this in their trainings, but for a while they would always refer to themselves as black and brown bodies. And so we are hearing that they are like Jaleel referred to himself as a body. And I would think that this would be the answer to that. If you're a body, that takes away your individual identity. It just makes it about how you show up on the outside, right? And so who you are, your individualism, your kind of innate being, that doesn't matter anymore. If you're just a body, you're a body. You're a black body, you're a brown body, you fit into the cog in the machine. Exactly. It's like a cog in the machine. If you just take out one cog, replace it with another cog, all cogs are just as good.
and I do a bunch of stuff. And one of those things I do is I advocate for students, and I fight administration. And I will be very happy to graduate, so I don't have to see y'all no more. And y'all don't got to see me, so we'll celebrate. And I work for TRIO, Student Success.
I strive to survive because I realize I'm wrapped in black skin, and understanding that the foundation of racism is anti-blackness. I have to pave the way for other black youth. And that is one of my motivations. And understanding that I have a black nephew and a black niece, and in a society that views them as dangerous and views you as dangerous, that's why I do it.
And these are the success stories. These are the students who have actually graduated. And what they had to go through to be successful
I forgot about this.
pales in comparison to other folks. Their experience at this institution or any other institution is not equivalent in terms of wear and tear on their psyche, on their confidence, and on their well-being, as if somebody who's coming from legacy, somebody whose grandparents, great-grandparents, parents went to institutions just like these. But they're only going to share these stories is if you're literally and actually going to take them into consideration the next time you interact with somebody who comes from a background of oppression. So their voices and experiences are going to be the catalyst to change and transform of how we go about business.
But I think enough students saying this person makes me feel unsafe is enough evidence that they make us feel unsafe and can't do their job. Like, we can't have this like process, really, like this long drawn out process. It needs to be like the job on campus where like you fuck up, it's a big fuck up, so like you need to go, and that needs to be like strongly worded and like strongly emphasized. We want all these people investigated, and so we keep having to do the labor to like educate students on how they're supposed to do that and when they're supposed to.
The 4 goals of the woke left are always and forever the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. We haven't talked about the 4 goals in a while, quite frankly, because I talked about it a lot last year. I've made videos on it. I've written articles about it. I wrote a whole flipping song about the 4 goals of the woke left. We have merch in my store about it, but sometimes it's helpful to do a little bit of a review. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. When I talk about gaining as much power as possible, oftentimes how the left gains power is through the soft power of influence. It's not necessarily through what people might call legitimate power. It's through the soft power of influence, where they gain power by getting you to do something that they want you to do. What we're seeing the students of Evergreen do here, and you could make the argument that they're trying to destabilize the system, and they're destabilizing their college campus. But fundamentally, before they're able to destabilize the campus, they need to gain the power to do so. And the power, in this case, was ceded to them by the administration by allowing this charade to go on in the first place. The only reason that the students were put into a position of being able to completely destabilize the campus is because the campus administration handed over all their power to them. Now, that might seem contradictory when I'm talking about how the administration screwed up by calling the police at Columbia. That might seem contradictory to that. However, there's a lot of steps that exist on the spectrum between handing over all of your power to the students and doing whatever they want you to do, and calling the cops on a group of students that are sitting on a lawn. There's a lot of other things that exist as possibilities. And what I want to suggest is that colleges and places dealing with this type of issue have to find that balance of you want to make sure that you do not just do what George Bridges did in this situation, which is unilaterally hand over all of your power to the students because they're going to use that power to destabilize the entire goddamn system. You need to not do that. At the same time, you also want to make sure that you are not escalating the situation beyond what it needs to be. That is the responsibility of leadership. I'm sorry. I know people want to say, just call the cops on them and have it be done with. But the fact of the matter is that the Columbia called the cops and it made the situation significantly worse than it otherwise probably would have been. So you've got to find that balance, and it is a delicate balance to walk. You've got to make the students feel heard. You have to give them an opportunity to speak, but you don't just hand all your power over to them. And there were a lot of universities that actually navigated this quite effectively. There were universities that entered into talks with students about the idea of divestment. There were universities that agreed to put the idea, because divestment was what they wanted. Anyone who says that the students didn't know why they were protesting is full of shit. The students wanted divestment from Israel. That's what they wanted. That was their number one demand on today's college campuses. So what a lot of universities did, and it actually was effective in getting the students to take down the encampments, was they entered into negotiations with the students. They gave a little bit to get a little bit. They listened to the students. They allowed them to have a voice. They didn't just capitulate on everything, but they said, okay, we'll bring divestment up. Will you take your encampment down if we bring divestment up for a vote in the faculty senate? That worked on some university campuses. Will you take your encampment down if we do X, Y, B, and Z? There were a whole bunch of campuses that walked that line far better than Columbia did, far better than UCLA did, far better than USC did, far better than the University of Michigan did. And it got the students to take down the encampment, and then guess what? It went away. It dissipated. Do you guys understand? Like, am I being clear about this? Like, people, it's easy for people to go to extremes in these situations, and it's easy for people to like hunker down in their tribalist corners. But reality is that sometimes these situations don't actually need to be escalated. Oftentimes, if you give people a chance to feel heard and considered, and you give them some concessions, that's actually going to do more to alleviate the problem than calling the cops and creating a whole fucking thing, because you know how much socialists hate the cops and how that's just going to escalate everything around it. Let me know if there are questions about that in the chat.
To do that, and why they're supposed to do that, and like why it's not happening and stuff. And we need y'all to take more initiative more initiative and time to set aside to like doing some of that process.
Students, we kind of have an understanding of what our rights are because we're constantly telling you what you can't do to us. Right. And you're constantly silencing us when we voice that. So we know what our rights are. Like,
one final thing on that. You're going to say, Carlin, the students just make shit up. Why do we want to take the time to hear them if they're just going to make shit up? Like, this student is just making stuff up. Because even if they're making stuff up, one of the easiest things that you can do to de-escalate any situation is to make someone feel as though they had the opportunity to be heard, regardless of what they're saying. If what they're saying is true, that doesn't matter. If most people feel like they have the opportunity to be heard, that will instantly de-escalate the situation.
We understand what y'all can't do, like send an officer in to push us without even just asking us what's going on. Like, that feels like something that shouldn't be happening to me. My question is, what are you going to do?
Well, SB is saying, I struggle with the idea of negotiating with these people. You give them concessions, they demand more. Except that provably didn't happen on some college campuses. I'm going to be very blunt, guys. The left is winning. The left is winning badly. If the left wants to destroy a college campus, they will. It is just provable in reality that on many of the college campuses, not all, but many, when they negotiated with the students de-escalated and took down the encampment. That's just factually true. So this is more of a feeling. This is not based in reality. And so if you want to dig in your heels and say, we do not negotiate with terrorists, you can go right ahead and do that, but they're going to win, and they're going to make things significantly worse than if you had just put on your big boy pants and tried in the first place. And might you try and might it fail? Sure. There were certainly universities where they did try and they did fail, but not all of them. And so if you are not going to be the adult in the situation, and you aren't going to try to de-escalate first, then don't be surprised when they start sending fires to shit. Don't be surprised when there is a massive fucking blowout on your campus all over the evening news. Don't be surprised when the fucking thing all of a sudden quadruples in size overnight because now the administration has escalated because they said, we do not negotiate with terrorists. You're going to lose if they escalate. I understand it because I'm a capitalist. I don't know how to say. You think you invented a word there. I'm a capitalist, as in invest in the free market capitalism, stock market, 401k, drip, long term, etc. Thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Yes, because they didn't. Bro, are you even listening to what I'm saying? The Columbia University administration did the exact opposite of what I'm saying. So, CE, we need to open our ears and listen to what I'm saying. Because what you're saying is, it escalated at Columbia. That's what I'm saying too, bro. Because the Columbia University administration explicitly did not do what I'm saying right now. They called the cops. It escalated out of control because they called the cops, because they didn't de-escalate exactly like I'm recommending. So open your ears, bro. Listening is fundamental. If you take time to look into it, then they know they have no means to push further. If you just deny them, then they have a legit grievance caused that they can point to your lack of action. Yeah. Well, I mean, and it could be like if they're really dug in and they do not want to negotiate. I mean, it takes two to negotiate. So the Columbia students, I don't think that, especially after they called the cops the first time, there was no more room for negotiation. That, like, Columbia fucked that up the minute they called the NYPD the first time. There was no going back after that. But I think on a lot of these campuses, if you just show up in like an actual good faith and you're actually trying to de-escalate and you're not creating like an adversarial environment, it's provable. We saw this happen on many of the college campuses. Let's see. Just looking in the chat. All right, let's keep going.
In response to what we're telling you, I mean, a lot of this stuff is civil rights. Y'all breaking our civil rights. I mean, y'all breaking laws and rules and regulations. It's bigger than just Evergreen. Y'all doing some shit that's on a whole new level here. Right. So let's stop pretending like we're not talking about that, because that's what we're talking about.
But I think it's important when you're talking to the students to like hear the words that the students are giving you. Mm-hmm. And so like, blah, blah, legal jargon. Mm-hmm. We've said that this is anti-blackness. We are the authority. We are the in this room is the authority on anti-black. You know what I mean?
All the white administrators in this building are not the authority.
Yeah. And so I'm comfortable with you doing what you need to do in like the privacy of like whatever type, you know, but like when it comes to addressing students, I think it's your responsibility to take the words we are given to describe our experience and using those.
My English class right now is working on a film and leaf that went in the archives where the whole email scandal that broke out between the staff and faculty. It's not the first time that this has happened.
So what do you think we should do about email here?
What do I think we should do about email here?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's nothing you can do. Like, that's like saying, what can we do about people writing letters? Like, people can send emails. We can't stop people from sending emails.
Oh, yeah.
No, we cannot. We cannot stop people from sending emails. Everyone, you can't stop somebody from typing an email. I can send an email right here. You're not going to stop me. And I'm just telling you that it's not the fact of them sending emails. It's the content of the emails. Exactly. And the fact that it's not being addressed. The fact that what's being said he's sitting here saying he thinks everything okay. Like, he still doesn't think he did anything wrong, and that's y'all's fault. 'Cause y'all.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Rottweiler here. Exactly. Just listening doesn't mean capitulating. Be smart. Let them make ridiculous demands so they look unreasonable. Set the trap and explode. That's actually a great point, Rottweiler. That's a great point. Document everything. Be proactive about it too. I think this is another mistake that I think a lot of the universities made. If you're in negotiation with the students, put out like lists saying, you know, we entered into negotiation with the students. Here's what we offered them. Here's what they wanted. Here's how that turned out. Put this stuff out proactively. Don't keep it behind closed doors. You can gain power back from these student groups if you handle it in the correct way. And I know maybe like this isn't what people are expecting to hear from me, because they're expecting me to be like, never negotiate with Marxists. And Marxists do suck. But the thing is like, at some point, someone has to be an adult. And we're going to be seeing a lot of these situations over the next several months. And at some point, like, if both sides are just escalating, that's ultimately going to lead to the left winning. And it's going to lead to them winning a lot faster than if someone was pragmatic and at least tried to slow them down a little bit. This is just common sense, guys. What I'm telling you right now is like, it's change management, it's leadership 101, it's people management 101. I know some things about this, and back in the day I used to teach people how to do this in corporate environments. Like, this is like basic.
He still thinks what he said in those emails is okay. And that's because of y'all, all of y'all sitting up here.
So a couple of clarifying points for this episode. About midway through the video, the VP of Student Affairs, Wendy Indris, addresses the gathering by saying that, quote, "We have a call from a mother who's concerned about their child, and what I want to ask is, and encourage, is that everyone is here of their own volition, and that folks who want to depart can depart." Now, then Jamil stands up and shouts, "They are weaponizing motherhood in a way they did not for Black people earlier this year." And then the crowd cheers. It's very important to kind of deconstruct this a little bit. The first point of order is that Wendy Indris addresses the relationship between the parent and the student as one between a parent and a child. I think that that's very important.
Hang on. We'll pause on Benjamin looking very smart. Curious if you have come across a situation where a school has successfully negotiated and de-escalated a situation. Yes, Janet. I mean, there are multiple instances of that happening with the campus protests. There were multiple universities, and I said this, maybe you weren't here, but I do appreciate the super chat. There were multiple universities that successfully negotiated with the students. They offered them votes on divestment. They offered them discussions about divestment. They spoke directly to their demands, and they got them to take the encampments down, and there wasn't a whole big hullabaloo about it. So yes, there are multiple instances of this happening within the last couple months. If you don't know about it, it's probably because conservative influencers fail to report on it, as they fail to report on everything, because all they really care about is owning the libs.
That she thinks of students there as children, and
that's
a
what I
lot
thought. You
of
weren't
the
here at the
behavior
beginning.
of the
Okay.
college
Yep.
towards the student body is as a parent towards a child. There's these bias incident response teams. There's this coddling that's going on constantly that's then manifested by the tantrum that the students are throwing in that situation. The problem with Wendy Indris's language doesn't end there. It continues when she says,
And what I want to ask is, and encourage, is that everyone is here of their own volition.
What?
And that folks who want to
What are you
depart
talking
can
about?
depart.
she doesn't directly address them. She uses this language that is a different vocabulary than the students are used to, and she doesn't directly address them and say very directly that whoever wants to be here is here by choice, and that anybody who wants to leave can leave by choice. She's actually trying to extend the benefit of the doubt to the protesters that they are not taking anyone hostage, which will turn out to be not the case in the next day's protest. But the students are not thinking critically at all, as you probably already understand. They see this, they perceive this, and this is what I see them perceiving this as there's a baby somewhere in the library building that is scared of all of these scary minorities that are acting in this scary manner. And what Wendy is doing is trying to shut down their movement by using the relationship between a mother and a child to do so. Now, when Jamil does his little statement about weaponizing motherhood, what he's actually referencing is the event that sparked the entire protest, which is when Kiave and Tomiko and Jamil had that confrontation and the police got involved. What happened was that the police tried to contact Tomiko after Kiave made his complaint. And the phone number that they had on record was not Tomiko's phone number, it was his mother's phone number. So that was taken as a point of aggression that they would contact a black male's mother on Mother's Day, because of course the cops and the black community have had a very terrible relationship. And as we dive further into the Evergreen story, we will see that the attitude towards the police is not just situated among the black students, but is perpetuated by the institution at large.
And we know why that is, right? We know why that is. Because socialists hate the police. Every abolish the police, defund the police initiative that you see anywhere across the country is coming from the far left radical revolutionary socialists. And the socialists in this case are not just the students, it's also the faculty, it's the administration. Basically, everyone on this campus is a far leftist. And so everyone on this campus has the same basic attitudes towards the police, which is kind of that they'll be tolerant of the police when just like an average day at the college. But there's a reason that Evergreen only had 2 cops working at that. Listen, man, I worked in higher ed. I tell this, I worked in higher ed for a decade. I worked at multiple different universities. I worked at big universities. I worked at small universities. I worked for consulting companies that did consulting for universities. I worked as a board consultant for I've done all sorts of shit with universities. I'll tell you what, every single university I ever worked at had way more than 2 security officers on campus at any given time. Now, most universities do lean left, but not all. Like Evergreen is on the extreme left end of the spectrum, okay? So there's a reason that they only had 2 uniformed cops on campus at any given time, and that's because they had basically the lowest possible amount that they probably needed to have it for insurance or something. There was some like they needed to have it to do a CYA move or cover your ass or something like that. But they don't like the cops. None of them like the cops.
That will eventually lead to Stacey Brown's suit against the institution after the fallout. One more point of order, and then we're wrapping this one up. Did you notice how incredulous the students were towards George Bridges when he said that he could just shut down email? So the students want the opposition to be brought to heel. They want Brett Weinstein to be forced to agree with them. George Bridges doesn't even want to take that step. He wants to shut down any sort of communication whatsoever and have the official opinion of the institution represented at every level of the institution, and any form of dissent shut down. And we will, as we will get into in the next episode, when we dive into the Canoe meeting, we will see that attitude of shutting down the opposition is again replicated on all levels of the institution.
Well, listen, just to be really clear here, there are a lot more people than socialists who don't like the police. I don't like the police either. I think the police are an organized gang. So I am not a back the blue person, and I know people have feelings about that. Some people have feelings about that. But I don't dislike the police for the same reason that socialists do. So it's like one of those things, again, it's not just socialists who dislike the police. A lot of people dislike the police, but all socialists hate the police and want to abolish the entire prison industrial complex. It's one of their number one issues.
Institution, not just the student body. And one more thing before we wrap up. I think it's very important that this video series does not stand as a repudiation against individuals. This is something that we should think of as a sociological event. One, the students are very young. They're acting out as young people usually act out, to the institution, even the individuals within the institution. Even though I'm not...
I love that even Benjamin back then was giving them the benefit of the doubt. And he's like, you know, the students were very young and they were acting out. The students were trained Marxists from the time that they were little kids. A lot of them probably had parents that were Marxists. And so this is not just like, and I'm sure that Benjamin realizes this now, but he didn't when he made this, I don't think. If he doesn't realize it now, I don't know what he's doing. But this is not just an isolated sociological event. This is something that we are now seeing nationwide, all over the country. These are not just onesies and twosies. This is an entire generation. And guys, I've talked about this for a while. Around 2008, 2009, 2010, that's when formalized equity departments started popping up in K through 12 school districts all over the country. That's not to say there weren't equity departments before that, but like as a formalized, funded staff department, that's when they started popping up everywhere. Equity is code for Marxism. What that means is the students who are graduating now are the first complete classes that have been educated in equity-based education their entire school career. From 5 years old, all the way up through high school, all the way up through college, if they went to college, their entire educational career. This is not just onesies and twosies. We are going to start seeing more and more and more and more and more and more and more of this. And there is really nothing that we can do about it. And this is not just Washington State. This is now nationwide. This was Washington State back then. That's not to say it wasn't brewing in other places as well. But now we're 7 years later from this. The kids who were in middle school when this happened are now graduating from college. Really think about that. The kids who were in elementary school when this happened are now graduating from high school. The kids who were in middle school when this happened are now graduating from college.
Accusing them of any responsibility for what happened, they're still manifesting a certain ideology. And I would really encourage the audience not to take out their aggression on individuals. One, that aggression solves nothing. Two, that aggression is a mirror of the aggression that we see here. So, you know, when you're reacting, sit with your reaction a little bit. I ask you, but I'm not going to tell you what to do because, of course, that would just get you guys to react. Anyhow, on to the next video.
All right, moving into episode 4, the Canoe meeting. Mount the like button if you haven't already, guys.
I was going to say, I don't understand how the diversity and equity plan was presented as this thing that people had to get on board with at this campus if you got paid by this campus, and then then it's turned around and then you get to send out all these emails about it.
Our focus today are the great goals articulated in the loose.
Fun fact, the infamous Canoe meeting was, I think, one of the first ever happy hours that we did over 3 years ago. We watched the entire Canoe meeting from start to finish. That video still exists on this channel if you want to go back and watch it. I'm sure I'm much better now at explaining this stuff than I was back then, but.
Elucidated by the council. Goals that we must and will embrace. And I call on all of us, everyone here, to embrace this campaign, the struggle and the goals. We must engage this work. The council does not propose a one and done project. Our work in pursuing these goals will—
Hang on. As a capitalist, I invest in Carlin's yearly Substack membership because I love her expertise and explanation in specific details to show the gravity. Well, thank you very much. I do really, really appreciate that. I also appreciate this super chat. Guys, if you would like to invest in my Substack as well and get a hold of some great supporter perks, you can head over to Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. And as a reminder for all supporters, we do have Spy Stream tomorrow. We have 2 Spy Streams tomorrow. I'm going to be... Excuse me. I'm going to be sending out information about that in the morning, but look for the first Spy Stream around 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Look for the second Spy Stream around 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and come and join us. Sorry if I missed it, but did you see James Lindsay tweeted yesterday, do you know the difference between gay and queer, and can you articulate it? Well, it's nice of James to catch up. Again, James. It's nice that James has caught up to where we were, like, what, a year ago? Possibly even more. But, you know, you shouldn't make fun of someone when they show up late to the party, as James Lindsay does perpetually all the time, literally months to years behind where we are. His audience doesn't know anything. And it's just nice. Like, we don't want to make fun of him for showing up dramatically late to the party. We just want to celebrate that he did made it. And we have to kind of take some credit for that. I'm sorry. I really think that James is starting to get nudged in the right direction because he knows we're on his ass and we're not going to stop being on his ass, and he can have all the feelings he wants about that. But, you know, it's good that he's finally teaching people. Everyone give a slow clap to James. It's all right that I was there first, perpetually ahead of him. That's okay.
Will never end. The goals can't be achieved overnight or even over the course of a year. The work must become part of all that we do now and in the future.
In this plan, you're either going to get on board or you're going to get left behind. And so I don't understand why it was even acceptable to be sending the emails in the first place if there was no choice.
And it will take many hands to do this, to unscrew the structure of institutional racism. And our hope is that we're inviting you to come along. We're going to do it. Don't get it twisted. But we would like for you to join us on this road, on this journey.
To turn around and allow people to then use it as a weapon in the way that Brett did, it just doesn't make sense to me why he's still here.
Gays Against Groomers responded to James that queer is a religious cult. I can't. Can someone please respond to Gays Against Groomers and tell them that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about and Jamery Mitchell can eat a dick? Tell them that Jamery Mitchell, and it has to be Jamery, not Jamie, Jamery, Jaimree, with the REEEE in all caps. Go tell Jamery Mitchell that she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about and she can eat several non-lesbian dicks. I mean, you don't have to say that. You can say something else too, but that would just be my recommendation. Yes, Jamery, exactly.
If this was something you had to get on board with.
We invite that conversation. But if you want to be an obstructionist, work on your own. Because we don't have time for it.
White person, white people there. Look at all those white people. What I love about the Canoe meeting is the best because they've even got the lady in the wheelchair. They've even got the lady in the wheelchair. Guys, just so you know, Gays Against Groomers is an incredibly corrupt organization. It's just a grifting op. Like, it really is. I covered them extensively on my Substack. Jamie Mitchell is just in it for herself. It's a completely AstroTurf thing. It was part of like the whole DeSantis thing, and then that all fell apart. But they're a completely corrupt organization. They don't know shit about shit. They're just in it for money. That's all money and clout, and that is literally all they care about. Anyway.
George is our leader.
Oh.
And truthfully, we're at this point.
Hang on, super chat from Rottweiler. I wouldn't give James Lindsay too much credit. His latest new discourses, I don't know how to say the word, called all of this a UN pagan global theocracy, one step forward, two steps back. Well, at least he didn't say it was Gnostic. I mean, he's now changed. Apparently, James has now video. Thank you, Rottweiler. The new discourse is video. Apparently, James is now. Maybe James was a little shook at us taking over his last podcast because he's now upgraded Gnostic to pagan. which also isn't actually accurate, but I mean, that doesn't really seem to matter anymore. Anyway, let's watch the Canoe meeting.
Today, it's because he did see the foresight when he came to this campus. And when he went off script on convocation in 2015 and said,
even with the important gains achieved by the nation's civil rights movement over many years, our country continues to struggle profoundly with issues of race and racism, social and economic inequality, and repeated and glaring instances of injustice. At this moment in our history, we have a rare and a critical opportunity to address these issues. And in the days, weeks, and months ahead, we will have community conversations about power and privilege in our society and on our campus. And I assure you, some of these conversations will prove difficult. The issues and solutions certainly are complex.
Yep.
Without him standing behind us 1,000%,
it's a mistake.
Then we would just continue to fight the struggle that we've all been fighting. Not all, some of us have been fighting for hundreds of years.
A group of faculty and staff discussing diversity and equity asked me to help improve the college's work on these issues. And as I became involved, I learned about inequities in the experiences of our students that were outrageous.
Such as?
Particularly those experiences of our underrepresented and underserved students. And I seriously regret, as our president, the egregious gaps that occur here at Evergreen and our students. And students, on behalf of the college, I apologize to each of you for the ways in which you've experienced the effects of these equity gaps. This has happened, it continues to happen, and it must stop.
It's really interesting because the equity gap movement that the scorecard thing led to.
Guys, breaking news. James Lindsay said capitalism. James Lindsay retweeted some guy today, and he says, you're already on the ropes and you'll come out openly against capitalism soon, which won't help you. It's working. We're winning. We're winning.
Such a deficit focus, right? It's like who's not thriving became the crisis. Just so you understand a little bit more about the context, it's called the Equity and Inclusion Council. I think it's had 3 different names. I've been a part of this and a prior committee for 6 years and another DTF for 2 years before that. So I've been through a lot of iterations. And the groups will
we're
say,
not giving up yet. Don't worry.
We're looking at multiple dimensions of diversity, right? We're looking at not just race. We're looking at ableism. We're looking at gender.
Wait. We need to go back. We're not just looking at race. We're looking at multiple aspects of diversity.
Inclusion Council, I think it's had 3 different names. I've been a part of this and a prior committee for 6 years and another DTF for 2 years before that. So I've been through a lot of iterations. And the groups will say, we're looking at multiple dimensions of diversity, right? We're looking at not just race. We're looking at ableism. We're looking at gender. We're looking at a veteran status. We care about first-generation students at a low socioeconomic level, right? So they'll say a lot of things that apply to a lot more of our students, right? The dialogue always becomes foregrounded by race. It just goes there. And you're like, well, so this group is lower than the other group. And I'm like, actually, veterans are lower than that, or men are struggling more, but it's also really tricky. Anytime you have a room full of folks that are often recruited to these committees intentionally because of a particular agenda or a particular, particular expertise, maybe is a less politically charged word, but both I think are in play.
There are things that we recommended that represented our best thinking at the time, that also represented the data that was in front of us. And now we need to say, what's our next step? And we do need to take a next step.
You need to know that these goals are informed by the literature, by the data that we got from learned from the students, by much conversation. These are not arbitrary goals. They are informed goals.
I don't think those recommendations very well match the data in some cases. And having been a part of the process, I will tell you that a lot of times the recommendations walked in the room from the very first kickoff meeting. And that then it became the burden of the data to try to, for people to find some data to support what they believed. One of the examples was students of colors have poor retention. It walked in the room with people who walked in that room. And I said, that is a false statement. I don't know how many times I said that is a false statement.
People worked beyond their capacity to do this work. They may not name it, but it needs to be in this room.
Look at all the
So when you
people.
look at it, you think about all the hard work that went into the recommendations. And then you think about how you're going to enter into that conversation. Because again, this work on this campus and what we say we're about is student-centered. And if we can't be student-centered, then we should take that off our name. Our students are what this work is about.
People want to do something, right? They want to take action. They want to do something. But to also have permission to critique, like there's a lot of rigidity around the engagement with this, not just the document, but with the initiatives. Seems like there's a fear of critique. There's a party line in the committee. Like questioning the plan was met with you're on board. I mean, even within the group, there should be room for us to say, look, we're all committed to this. The fact that we have slightly different perspectives on how to move forward shouldn't be a threat, right? It could be a strength. There's such a fear in saying that we're doing well at some things. In some cases, our gaps are so much smaller than the national norms, and no one even wants to talk about it. Guys, we have the national student retention data exchange data that says we may be disappointed in ourselves that African American and Native American students are not persisting as well towards graduation. But do you know how big that gap is in other schools? It's, blasphemy to say such a thing. We are doing something to counter historical norms. But that in and of itself is taboo right now in the climate that we're in.
We're the Evergreen State College. We do diversity well. We're leading the nation in diversity.
Why was it taboo to say, you know what, things might not be perfect, but we're doing better than most people? Why was that considered to be taboo on Evergreen's campus? Pop quiz for the chat. Why was that simple statement that, we're doing better than most people are? Why couldn't they say that? What do you guys think? See, I asked you a question you can't use talking points for now. Now you got to think. Why was it taboo to say to talk about that they're doing better? Well, okay, so this is part of it. The revolution is perpetual. I don't think that's as much about it, but it could be Rottweiler. That's not what I have in mind. The work is never done. Yup. No one is free until everyone is free. Okay, now we're getting closer. Say it to me a little more specifically, guys. Why don't they want to acknowledge that they're doing better than other people? They aren't free till everyone is free. I'm not seeing it so far. Well, it is true that acknowledging that you're doing better than other people isn't going to support the struggle. Okay, let me ask you this. What is their goal? Is their goal to end racism on campus? Is that really what the goal is? Or is the goal something else? Because the abolition of capitalism isn't done yet. Because what they're saying the goal is not actually the goal. The revolution hasn't happened yet. Equity is the goal. Well, sure, equity is the goal, but equity means Marxism. So they're never going to be able to achieve that on a college campus. Their goal is to remove all hierarchy. Ah, there it is. Rottweiler. Rottweiler with a gold star. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. It doesn't matter what they say the problem is. The issue is the revolution. This is what they're pushing. So that's why they can't say, well, you know, we're actually doing better than a lot of places, because they don't actually care about how they're doing in regards to getting Black students. To say that we're doing better than a lot of other places would be to say that they actually care about Black students graduating from college at the same rate as everyone else. They don't care about that. That's not what this is about. That's not what this is about at all. The issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. Do you guys see that? If they actually just cared about, like, we just want to make sure that Black students graduate from college at the same rate as white students, this would not be the tactic that they would have taken to solve that particular problem, because it's never going to solve that particular problem. Do you guys see?
But one thing we're not leading a nation in is equity. And what that means is that some of y'all sitting in these seats and some of y'all sitting in these seats have had experiences that ain't been right.
You're again making assumptions about what's going on here that are not correct. They are in the midst of the struggle. The struggle is the revolution. There's going to be no unification. There can't be unification. They're in the struggle.
The cost is too high. And the implications are too much. And at some point in time, if this campus is going to stand up for what it espouses to be, it needs to say enough is enough. Because if we don't, before we blink, we'll be in just as much shock as we were last week, but wondering what happened to the Evergreen State College.
That's how whiteness works. Whiteness is the most violent fucking system to ever breathe. It's not an accident. It's not an accident that all of our administration is white. Yeah. Right. It's not an accident. That shit is systematic as fuck. So while we sitting up in here acting like this conversation is gonna change shit, y'all know what changes shit? Action. That's why the fuck we in this room.
If we can create a more equitable and just community at Evergreen, our students, you, our students, will be the ones who work to close the divisions in our country and create a more equitable and just society.
We are calling upon the young ones to lead us. And in this work as the Equity Council, that's what we've done. We've said the students are at the center and they are our leaders. So that's just a little bit of how I'd like to frame up how we're going to approach this travel on our canoe.
So we're going to do something for you today that we did as a group in August. And we're going to ask for key stakeholders that are on this campus to get on board our journey to equity. Okay?
The canoe.
And we're going to get on a canoe that's going to sometimes have fierce waves, unbearable headwinds.
The wheelchair lady's going to get on the canoe as well.
And sometimes intentional or unintentional extra rocking of the boat. because we're not on the same page or on the same heartbeat. So what I'm going to ask is we need to pretend that there is a canoe going along the bottom of this stage. So if we can bring this canoe forward some and make sure it's a straight canoe. If we need to have our canoe, and John, let me know if this is not okay. Can it be 3 wide? 2 wide, okay, so we got to make this happen. This is our canoe,
They even had a
and we got to
dreamer.
make this happen because we can't leave anyone behind, and we need the right people on this canoe in order to achieve it. Oh, hold on 1 second, hold on. The senior administrators, you have to ask for permission and commit some things before boarding the canoe.
The senior
So can we step
administrators are
back
not
out?
allowed on the canoe.
Can we get to the side? And I'm going to ask for a student to set the tone and model for us. What is it that we do before we board this canoe? And why is it that you want to get on board?
I am boarding this canoe with passion. You can count on me to hold y'all accountable when y'all start to rock this. Till y'all cut it off. Seriously. I invite every student that identifies as a Black person to board this ship physically, this canoe physically with me as I board. Thank you. Right now. Let's go.
To turn around and allow people to then use it as a weapon in the way that Brett did.
There's Brett
It just doesn't make
Weinstein,
sense to me why he's still here if this was something you had to get on board with.
I believe the equity plan is a great plan. I also know that every organization and every school I've been a part of, there are always people who don't buy in. And the problem is, they have an opportunity to speak their mind. Even sometimes they do it in the most offensive ways.
I don't care. I read your email. It's bullshit. Fuck you. I'm tired. And fuck your students. And you had You tell Black people what we need from you. You can't tell us what we need from you.
And how do we stop people from speaking offensively? That's a challenge. There is this concept of free speech. Now, if it constitutes a hate crime, if it's targeting a certain population, then we got a point of leverage.
Is it at all possible that we call these what they are when they're written on documents as alleged hate crimes? Because they're targeting students of color.
Hang on. Kyle is chatting in something interesting, though we are in the future and Kyle is in the past. That's okay. Kyle says, I heard it explained by a woke socialist a couple years ago that the reason they use bodies is because the oppressive system doesn't recognize their humanity, but as objects to exploit. Oh, well, that kind of goes along with what we were saying. Like they're cogs in the machine. Their bodies are cogs in the capitalist machine. But that's a really interesting way to put it that I hadn't heard. Thank you, Kyle.
Color and making students of color feel unsafe. And I feel like that is a hate crime.
Thank you for raising that. I've actually asked the Attorney General whether some of these actions, I'm not talking about the specific ones here we're discussing today, are hate crimes. And there's a very narrow legal definition of hate crimes. Probably some of them are and some of them aren't. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not opposed to your idea. I want to make sure that if we're going to call something even an alleged hate crime, that we have the correct legal definition, because the documents that we have, as we know, are legal. Public documents, we have to be careful about that.
When balancing between the line of like legality and what that's going to look like, and then like what effects on mincing words will have on the population, I need the emphasis to err on the side of protecting the student population, even if there's legal repercussions.
I mean, I think it's also not a coincidence that he decided to like target Naima and Rashida as black women.
That was no coincidence.
I know why y'all didn't stick up for Rashida and Naima. I know why y'all didn't do that, because y'all don't feel it inside of you to do that. Like as people, you don't feel the need to do that because you've never experienced, you can't relate to us because you've never been oppressed, so you don't feel like it's your place to say anything.
Never
People that
been
you have a
oppressed.
should have a closer relationship with. If you can't stand up and fight for them and wonder about their well-being, how is that supposed to make me feel like you care about me or my well-being?
I'm going to politely disagree with both of you. I am really angry about this situation. I am really angry about those emails. And I am really angry at the Deans, the Brett, and the letters. I was curious about this. And it has to stop. Now it's not stopping. So we got to do more.
This matters to me personally. Nearly 30 years ago, when I was
I'm having such flashbacks to working in higher education as we're watching this, and just like the number one goal of any college president is to not get fired. That is their true goal. It's not fundraising. It's not running an effective university. Once like you guys, like faculty members work for years and years and years to get the coveted college presidency. They have to go through these recruiting processes. They have to follow the exact right track. Like they're like, and so once they get that college presidency, their number one goal is don't get fired. And basically they go into these college presidencies and they do everything they can to just not rock the boat. Because if you get a college presidency, that's actually a pretty fucking sweet deal. You get paid a ton of money. You've got great benefits. You are the king of the campus. You are the spokesperson for the campus. They even give you a fucking house to live in. Like it is a big deal. It is like a very prestigious thing. And then like once you get one college presidency, then you work your way up because you're trying to get into the elite college presidency. And so like what I'm saying is that watching George here, it's like I'm seeing like I've been in board meetings for colleges, and I've been in like executive committee meetings at colleges, like where the president is like, you know, like basically like the leadership of colleges. I've sat in on those meetings, and it's just like I've seen this stuff before where you can tell it's not about doing a good job. It's not about supporting the students. It's not about doing anything other than the president is trying desperately to not get fired. And so the president usually says like as little as possible. And everyone else just talks. And then at some point they all go out for a fancy dinner and that's it. And so when I'm looking at George doing this, I'm like, George is telling everyone exactly what they want to hear. George doesn't believe any of this stuff. He doesn't believe any of this. I promise you. The only thing that George cares about is like, I need to say what's required of me so that I don't get fired. And that, of course, is the great downfall of Evergreen State College, because they hired an incompetent leader as president. They hired someone that like just literally thought that he was going to come in and it was all going to be cool and he was going to have his presidency. And then after he was done with Evergreen, he was probably going to try to move on to another college because that's what they do. He literally just wanted to come in and tell everyone what they wanted to hear and hope that nothing happened.
Faculty member at the University of Washington, a colleague and I uncovered systematic evidence of institutionalized racism in the court system of Washington State. Astonishing repeated instances in which African American youth were subjected to racially biased decisions by judges and court personnel. I was shaken by that evidence and angered immensely by what I read. Case file after case file of Black youth accused of crimes and how poorly and unfairly our courts were treating them. My intense anger and desire for change drove me to devote years of my career to studying, fighting against, and eliminating racial inequities in our juvenile courts. Ultimately, laws were passed in the 1990s. Progressive reforms were enacted and achieved. And for a moment, it seems for only a moment, racially biased decision-making was drastically reduced in many areas of the state.
And yet we all know that racial biases persist and undermine many aspects of our justice system today. And I've come to understand that eliminating bias and inequity anywhere is a lifelong struggle everywhere. I don't mean to put my hands up to silence you, that's not my purpose. It's a sign of my utter frustration and the challenges that we have in every organization. There are going to be a handful of people who are just going to tell us all, fuck off. So put that down on the video.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
They're going to say some things that we don't like, and our job is to bring them on or get them out. Right. And what I hear us stating that we are working toward is bring them in, train them, and if they don't get it, sanction. Right. And you must, and I encourage you to hold us accountable to doing that. We're going to make a commitment at 4, commitments at 4 to the things that we agree to. And I may not get the words out of my mouth just right, but we're going to do this.
And then we got up to the top of the stairs, and there was a group of people kind of standing in a half circle, and one person who was standing there talking to them, and she was explaining that they needed to hide their mace and their tasers because the police could come, and they didn't want anyone to be expelled or punished.
Oh, wow. So the student socialists are armed, but the police weren't allowed to be armed. What does that sound like? Does that sound like the Antifa groups that we've watched talking about how they're getting weapons and training with guns and stuff like that? Well, at the same time, conservatives think they're the ones that have all the guns, when in fact, no, the left does have guns too. Let's keep going, guys. We're doing great today. We're going to do another episode.
Evergreen Police.
Hi, I'm calling from the Performing Arts Scene Shop. There's someone left their dog in their car in the handicap spot outside of our loading dock. The dog's been in there for like half an hour or so, maybe more, and the sun's on the window. I was wondering if you'd come over and maybe we can try to figure it out.
We can try. We're super, super low staff, and because of the event that happened earlier today, we're on lockdown. So Mike can talk to my officers and see if they want to go over there.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
During the meeting between protesters and the bridge's administration, Afropunk.com published an article about that morning's protest to Brett Weinstein, based on student reports of quote-unquote excessive police backlash. The students in Afropunk were taking advantage of the Black Lives Matter movement, which in 2017 was possibly at its climax as far as public attention was concerned. Occupy Wall Street, which had replaced the anti-war movement, had come and gone, and the Me Too hashtag had yet taken hold. In fact, on Evergreen campus, not a few administrators and faculty had Black Lives Matter posters hanging in their windows.
Oh,
if the coinage holds true, that if you want to know who is in charge, then find out who you can't criticize. Applying this to a slogan might show us what ideology is currently in vogue.
I'd like for someone on the panel to describe the difference.
Hang on. If you want to know who's in charge, find out who you can't criticize. That's an interesting way to put it, Benjamin Boyce. And I know we're taking this out of context from what Benjamin was talking about here, which is absolutely true. If you want to know who's in charge, find out who you can't criticize. But I find that to be a little ironic, considering, what was it, maybe a month ago? When James Lindsay was on Benjamin's show, we found out that we're not allowed to criticize James Lindsay. We're not allowed to criticize him at all. We can't question what he's teaching people, even when it's provably nonsense. We can't question why he is teaching people that queer theory is a Gnostic sex cult, when in fact queer theory is an attack on the gender binary, because they believe that capitalism created the gender binary by putting men in the workplace, women in the home, doing the unpaid labor of raising the next generation of oppressed proletarian workers. It's also an attack on the nuclear family, because they need to eradicate that, because they believe the nuclear family is the literal means of production of capitalism. Isn't it ironic that James blocks everyone who criticized him, and that we were called trolls for daring to criticize him. In fact, let's just sidebar. Hang on. What happened when James Lindsay was on Benjamin Boyce? Hang on.
What does I don't know. This might be coded, but I'm not sure. What does a Gnostic sex cult have to do with the far left's goal? This guy named Bot is going off about this Gnostic sex cult. What that?
And so we're just not going to answer that question.
Okay, so that's I figured that. So we're just okay. That's why I figured that. Yeah.
You want to talk about knowing who you can't criticize, Benjamin? You might want to take a look in your own backyard, bro. Seriously. All right, moving on.
It's between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter.
I think about on this campus, one of the ways that this kind of pushback that says all lives matter is, I think it happens. I mean, the best I can kind of come up with, I'm not white, so I don't know, maybe y'all can help me with this, is I think it's insecurity, right? I think it's this idea that by someone saying Black Lives Matter is saying you matter less, right? Because what would have to be kind of acknowledged is that because of this thing that is unearned, you've actually had a position where life has actually mattered more. And so no one's looking to devalue anybody so much as have like incremental attempts at evening the playing field. And I personally experience that response as violent, right? Because it's somebody trying to say, I'm asserting my life, right? I'm asserting my dignity. I'm asserting my capacity to just walk out my house and do what I need to do without getting shot, right? And other people just not being able to hear it. I respond to that as violent. I experience it in that way. And I think that, that would be the easiest way that I could think about the comparison between the two.
In early October, it was reported to me that a number of hashtag White Lives Matter flyers had been found around campus. My heart sunk when it was reported to me. And after consulting with a small group of colleagues, I made the decision not to share this report with the bias incident response team. And part of my rationale at the time was leaning toward a strategy, which is sometimes the right strategy, to minimize and quote unquote ignore the act in an effort to lessen its power and impact, versus of course the alternative, which is to elevate and draw attention and use the opportunity to engage with more speech and education to address the incident. As I reflected, it has been important for me to recognize, and discouraging for me to recognize, that that judgment call was informed by my failure to step out of my personal worldview, largely informed by the fact that I'm white. And I thought I knew better. I'm disappointed and I'm embarrassed by that journey and that learning. And I'm especially concerned about it because I serve in a position that absolutely must do better if we're collectively going to better serve our students and colleagues of color.
Also during the meeting between Bridges and the protesters, the college communications officer, Zach Powers, sent the following email to all Evergreen students, staff, and faculty. Community forum regarding equity concerns today at 4 p.m. All Evergreen students are invited to join President George Bridges this afternoon at 4 p.m. in Library 4300 for a community forum about student-raised equity concerns at the college. Following a student demonstration and impromptu community forum on campus this morning, President Bridges and other Evergreen administrators are currently meeting with student leaders to discuss specific action items that will be set in motion situation immediately. These items will be shared at the 4 p.m. forum. The forum will also be an opportunity for students to provide additional feedback to college leaders. Now, Library 4300 under no circumstances can hold all Evergreen students. And as well, there's only one exit and entrance from this room. One additional note is the line, President Bridges and other Evergreen administrators are currently meeting with student leaders. First of all, who elected them student leaders? And secondly, what effect does calling them student leaders have?
Hello?
Hi, I'm looking for Davis. This is Evergreen Police Department.
Oh, this is her son, but I'm not sure exactly where she is. Sorry.
Okay, well, what we're trying to find right now is who has the truck on campus with the dog in it.
Oh, that would be my mom, probably, yeah.
Okay, the dog is in a hot vehicle panting. My officers are out there as we speak. So if you have some way to get a hold of your mother, she needs to get to that truck immediately.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to get a hold of her anyways. But she's at the rec center. That's where you could find her. I don't really have a key to the truck.
Okay,
Otherwise,
she doesn't have another cell phone or another phone number?
Only the one that I've been trying.
Okay. All right, well, I'll see if I can get a hold of the CRC. All right, okay. Thank you.
So yeah, lunch happened. It was announced that there was going to be a meeting in the library, which we all decided to go to. And Brett kind of asked different students, like, is this a thing that he should be present at or not be present at?
Somebody later found out that it would be okay for me to go. So I said, well, I'm going. I remember them thinking that wasn't such a hot idea. They thought it was dangerous. And I said, well, they're asking for me to be fired. I really think I should be there. And a number of them said, well, we don't want you going in there alone. We want to go with you. And I said, well, that's a great idea. I would appreciate having other people present.
I was already with a fellow student in the class, and we had gotten to the library and we saw another group of people in our class walking towards the library. So we waited for them to join us because there were a bunch of people who we had recognized from the protest standing around the elevator. And so we kind of just wanted to, I'm not sure, we'd all been videotaped, so we knew that people knew what we looked like. So we waited for them, and then we all went up the stairs together, and it felt like there were a couple people following us. And then we got up to the top of the stairs, and there was a group of people kind of standing in a half circle, and one person who was standing there talking to them, and she was explaining that they needed to hide their mace and their tasers because the police could come, and they didn't want anyone to be expelled or punished or reprimanded. So we were kind of, I guess we didn't know what they were talking about at first, and then we kind of stopped and were listening. And once they saw us, they recognized us, and they kind of like this ripple went out that we were Brett students. And so they stopped talking about what they're talking about, and we weren't really sure where to go. So we just started walking towards the room.
As soon as we came in, they told us that the chairs and anything in the front is for people of color only, unless you're disabled or a faculty member, and that the food is for people of color only, and that people of color were the only ones allowed to speak at this meeting. And then people of color who wanted to speak who weren't dark enough were told to stand down.
Many of us who were not used to being confronted by the idea that segregation was back and viewed as a good thing and all of that, were hearing things that were just beyond belief.
It seems like there was a epistemological segregation. There was a segregation that preceded the actual physical segregation that was enacted by a lot of trainings, a lot of orientations, a lot of what's called anti-racist work did a lot to segregate people according to privilege, which just, it seems like a natural flow that it would eventually end up to racial segregation being reintroduced.
I do think so. I think there's a way in which the idea is the received wisdom in the social justice camp is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So everything that has been is going to be reversed.
And so at the beginning, it was this big circle So there was this big circle set out, and I assumed that, I don't know, Brett would be put in the middle with someone to interview him about his racism, and they'd have this conversation, and everything would be fine afterwards once Brett got a chance to explain what he meant by his words and where he felt the problem was. And that's not what happened at all.
Community love.
Community
love.
Hi, I'm Jamil. Basically, we just want to begin by clarifying that this land we are on, not
Land
ours. And that these
blessing!
bodies that
Pop quiz for the chat. Why did they do land blessings? Land blessings have fallen out of style in recent years, although they do seem to be making a comeback. Pop quiz. Why do they do land blessings? I wanted to stop and say, Brett didn't understand honestly what he was up against yet. I still don't think Brett Weinstein understands this. Up to this day, I don't think Brett Weinstein really understands what happened. We have been seeing more land blessings lately. There was a lull in land blessings for a couple of years, but they're making a comeback. They're probably making a comeback, honestly, because of what's going on in the Middle East. Like, because the Middle East is all about decolonization. So they're probably bringing the land, because the land blessings are to recognize that they're on stolen indigenous land. They're acknowledging that the land was colonized by capitalism. Land blessings are to acknowledge the land the institution is on is stolen from the indigenous people. The indigenous non-capitalist, whether in solidarity with the native non-capitalist people. Exactly. That's a great way to put it, Illustration Station. Land blessings are to blessing to decolonize the land, to decolonize the space and return it to the indigenous people, because the land is stolen by colonization and it belongs to the collective. Exactly. Lots of right answers I'm seeing in the chat. The oppressors stole the land from the indigenous. Bringing attention to colonization. Colonization means to privatize the land under the oppressive force of capitalism. Yeah. So they're bringing land. I'll bet you the reason they're bringing land blessings back is because of what is going on in the Middle East and Gaza. Zionists have made decolonization important again. Exactly.
have been working to get this shit done aren't being paid. And a lot of this labor isn't being distributed equally. And how many times in our history and Evergreen's history and everyone's history has this labor fallen on the very specific people that it's fallen on to get this done, to get this to happen? It also needs to be clarified that this is not it. That this is just one step, and that we will be here tomorrow in the library lobby at 1, and that we will be here every day, and that Black bodies will be put in this institution, and brown bodies and trans bodies, and all these people, and they're
going to have all the bodies.
Doing this work, and we will be needing to hold that institution accountable.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard land blessings everywhere, but I mean, I think they're most popular in the United States, but I've definitely heard them everywhere.
Moments that every day at every conference.
Yes. Woo!
So I'm going to get off because I'm shaking, but I want to clarify
I'm
that
literally shaking.
George is claiming that he needs to leave by 5:30, so we need to make sure that we're being really concise and getting our shit said, and you can say it as emotionally, as angrily, as passionately as you need to, but we need to also make sure we're making space for the people who need to be heard, and we need to be getting it done in an effective amount of time. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So what's about to happen is a few of us went into a room with George and some of the administration to come up with some really concrete, important work that he needs to be held accountable to and the institution needs to be accountable to on a timely basis. George is going to clarify the points that he's made and that he's committed to, and y'all are going to get a chance afterwards to clarify, to make any, to voice any changes that you feel need to be made, and to voice any concerns you need to happen in this space. Does that feel good to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. If at any point you have any accessibility needs, you feel you can't be heard, you feel come up to me, come up to someone, we will make that shit happen. It has to happen in this space, okay? Everyone good?
All right.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you all for coming. this is a beginning, it is not an end. The work is important, critical to the future of the college.
So we're going to fast forward through George Bridges' statement, because I have the email and we can get back to this later if we feel it's necessary. There's some things here that do develop into other parts of the story, but I'm just going to briefly read the introduction. I was sent this on May 24th, 2017 at 12:30 p.m., which is about a half hour before the library blockade begins, which I think is kind of interesting that George Bridges, instead of preparing for that blockade, which he had been warned about by his police chief, Stacey Brown, he's doing this bureaucratic stuff, but that's how George Bridges operates. It's always the bureaucratic level. Anyways, I don't want to get ahead of it into the interpretation part. We'll just read this opening statement. Evergreen students, on Tuesday, many of you used your voices, time, and emotional labor, get that, to tell me you do not feel safe. You demanded change and accountability right now. To those who stood up and told me how they have experienced racism on our campus, thank you for your courage. With input from many students, the following actions will be taken to address the specific concerns raised. Now, I do find it interesting that George Bridges is not allowing for, at least publicly at this point, that there might be other students who have a vested interest in other ways of acting and other ways of being represented by the administration and by these student leaders, so-called, but he skips over that and he just addresses the loudest voices in the room, which he's questioned about later by the actual legislature.
If you can postulate about what your response would have been had one of those protest groups from outside come into your office with the same intent to talk with you about change on the campus, with the same
intensity,
same voices, the same anger, the same profanity, the same.
Look at this, a socialist sighting in the real world by Saltwater Pearls. I saw a socialist in the world today with ignorant style tattoos, blue and pink socialist mullet, and a nose piercing. See, guys, this is why it's important to understand that socialists usually have, well, not usually, but socialists sometimes have really bad black tattoos of all sorts of random shit. And they have the socialist haircut and all that other stuff, because then you know how to identify socialists in the wild. Thank you, Saltwater Pearls.
Intention, demands, let's say, of change on the campus.
I know college students. I don't know other groups. I've worked tirelessly for many years with college students, classes of 800 where a quarter or a third of the class didn't like the grades they were getting. That's an interesting experience. So I feel very comfortable with college students even in tense interactions when the language is just plain rude. I don't like it. I don't like the disrespect. And I've talked to the protest leaders very firmly in private conversations about that. But if it's an outside group, I would be much more inclined to call in law enforcement right away. Again, my decisions were based on years of work with students.
But again, getting ahead of myself, one of his responses is that no charges will be brought by the college against students. There's going to be an independent review board, which eventually does get put into place to review the entire situation, that he staffs with people that he's known for 20 to 30 years. He's going to institute a student code of conduct review board built of students, and he's actually going to hire and actually pay leaders of the protest to revise the student code of conduct. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. He also wants to institute anti-bias training for all faculty and staff, and also wants to implement a very clear sort of student-faculty evaluation process, or a student complaint of the faculty process. And then he says something about undocumented students, and he says in this email, at least, I will commit to following up no later than Friday, June 2nd, with a more detailed timeline of dates by which actions will occur, who will be responsible for implementing each activity, and details about compensation offered for student work on these issues. It is imperative that we take action to dismantle systems of oppression here and further afield. I look forward to your continued input and to working to serve you. Sincerely, George S. Bridges, president of the Evergreen State College. Now, this is before the widespread viralization of these Evergreen videos happens. Furthermore, this is before the library blockade. This is before Tucker Carlson comes on the scene. This is before the wide world wakes up to what's happening at the wokest of woke places, the Evergreen State College. But now we're going to get into the superior cringe. We're going to get into the struggle session. I don't know what else to call this. Still, looking at this footage makes my skin crawl. But let's dive right into this room.
CRC front desk. Hi, this is Kat over to Evergreen Police. Hi. Hi. We've got a dog in a truck that's super, super hot parked over at the comm building, and evidently that person is at the CRC. Her name is Davis. That sounds familiar to you?
She scanned in at 3 o'clock.
Okay, is it possible to page that person and have her go to her vehicle immediately where my officers are?
Yes, I can have the attendant go find her.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Evergreen Police.
Hey, this is Melanie at the CRC front desk.
Hi.
Hi, Davis just passed me and she's on her way to her car.
Okay, all right, perfect. Yep.
All right, let me see. Guys, I think we're going to end it there for today. We've been watching this for a couple hours now, so I think that's a good stopping point. Also, I need to go and run an errand. And so I'm being selfish because tonight I want to try to cook pizza. I'm in this like keto recipe rabbit hole on Instagram, and tonight I want to try to cook a pizza with a crust that is made out of canned chicken and cheese and an egg. And apparently if you take a can of chicken and you put an egg in it and you maybe put some cheese, like Parmesan cheese in it or something, and then you mix it all up and you spread it out just like you would a pizza crust, and you bake it for 15 minutes or so, and then you take it out and then you put pizza like ingredients on top. Like you could do a normal pizza with tomato sauce and cheese and pepperoni and all that stuff. Or what I want to do, because I like Caesar salad pizza. I haven't had it in a long time, but it's sounds like a really good idea because you have the chicken in the crust and then you have the Caesar salad on top of the chicken with maybe like a garlicky sauce or something. So anyway, I want to go to the store to get the stuff to make this keto pizza. Because I've been seeing it all over my Instagram and I'm like, I want to try it, and I'm not putting pineapple on it. Fuck you guys. Pineapple on pizza is terrorism. Anyway, so we'll cut it short there and we will resume this. We're not going to be resuming it tomorrow because tomorrow is a very special day, because tomorrow we have not one spy stream, but 2 spy streams. And this is for supporters only, because spy stream is always a supporter only exclusive. And so what we're doing is around about the 12:30 Eastern time hour, we will be starting our first spy stream, and that's going to go for a couple hours, and then we're going to take a little break, and then round about the 5:30 p.m. hour, we are starting our second spy stream, because it is Pride Month. Both of those spy streams have to do with trans and queer kids, and so one of the presentations is actually a taxpayer-funded presentation, and for just as a reminder, spy stream is when we go inside a live woke training, and we don't know what's going to happen, and we're like a fly on the wall, and we watch it, and sometimes things happen that we end up broadcasting on the internet that's really inconvenient for the people doing the presentations. I can't tell you what the trainings are because we don't want to give it away. But what I will tell you is that if you are a supporter on my Substack, in my locals, on my Patreon, a Twitter subscriber, or a YouTube channel member, tomorrow you will be receiving, I will be posting out the links to join the spy stream. And so everyone can come and watch, and I hope that everyone has the opportunity to get at least one of the spy streams. Sadly, this will mean that my community call is not going to happen tomorrow for supporters, the normal Wednesday at noon call, because we're going to be doing spy stream instead. So I do apologize for that, but that's okay, because I hope you guys will forgive me for it. The very best way to join me is by heading over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up as a supporter for $8 a month, $80 a year. I will be sending out those credentials, so you'll be able to find them on there. I may even do it later on tonight just to have it out early, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do a reminder in the morning or something like that. So that's where you can join us, guys. And again, if you are also a supporter, if you are already a supporter on another platform like Locals or Patreon or a Twitter subscriber or a YouTube channel member, I will be posting the credentials out there as well. So make sure you check for them. And they will certainly be posted by by about 11 a.m. tomorrow morning at the absolute latest, and they might even get posted tonight, depending on how my evening goes. But as you guys do know, it is Tuesday night. And Tuesday, this is not my last stream of the day, it's about my first stream of the day, because we will be convening back in a couple hours' time to watch Nothing Remotely Controversial with Joshua. And Joshua is going to predict if Trump will actually go to prison. And he will be taking your questions as well. So I do hope to see some of you later for Nothing Remotely Controversial. And now I'm going to go get the ingredients to make a keto pizza, even though I don't actually consider myself to be like on the keto diet. But like, I just keep seeing these recipes come up in my Instagram. My Instagram knows, like, Carlin, go on the keto diet, lose weight that the internet has been demanding you lose. It's like, go on the keto diet, Carlin. I'm like, I don't want to go on the keto diet. I usually feel like crap when I've been on, like, every time I've tried the keto diet before, it's not worked out well. I get miserable and I get cranky and all this stuff. But if I can eat like pizza and stuff like that, and I've been making this keto cheesecake thing with yogurt and like eggs and stuff like that. I've been eating a lot of eggs lately, I'll tell you that, just because of all these goddamn Instagram things. Anyway, that's probably way more information than you guys wanted about my diet. All right, I'm gonna go to the store. Oh, don't worry, Joseph. No matter what I do, no matter how many miles I run, no matter how many weights I lift, I have never actually been successful at losing my copious ass. So don't you worry. All right, guys, that is all we have for right now. I'll be back in a little bit. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.